Welcome to a very special edition of the Color Me series. And the Color Me series really explores the different qualities that we embody, but in particular, we're focusing on women because of Women's Month. And we're looking at the many colors that exist, like Color Me Brave, Color Me Vulnerable, Color Me Love, Color Me Conviction. And why Naadiya is a special edition is because when I had an opportunity to chat with her, she embodies all eight of them. So she's not going to be, I think she'll be Color Me Rainbow. So tune in and let's hear what Naadiya is all about, how Naadiya came to be, how Hub came to be, how she is this woman who's able to wear these multiple hats and still show up proud, strong, and quite collected. Naadiya, welcome to the Color Me series.
Thank you so
much. Like I said to you the last time, it's an honor to have this opportunity to chat with you and talk to you about the qualities that women embody, but mostly about how you came to be you know?
Yeah.
And we are here at the Womb Hub, a co-working space that you run with your partner, and I'd really like to explore some of the stories that led to this wonderful place that you're at. But before we do that, maybe tell us about you.
Sure. So, Naadiya Moosajee, I'm an engineer, a serial entrepreneur. I am, as you said, did I wear many hats? I always say, because I don't wear hats, I actually wear scarves. So I wear many scarves in many different colors. And so besides being an engineer, serial entrepreneur, I'm a mom of two little boys. And I guess my story and what I wanted to do, and I guess, is to create a more diverse and equitable world for everybody. So my path in life and my passion is to do just that, is to figure out how we can do it in a sustainable way.
Beautiful. You said you wear many scarves. I love the ownership of that. Move me from the hats. I wear scarves. So I will honor that. And they're beautiful scarves, by the way.
Today's a very plain one. Normally they like them because the dress is colorful. So the scarf, I'm pretty deliberate in my coordinating. Everybody's like, Naadiya, we always see you with a different scarf and a different outfit, and it's all coordinated. And I was like, yes, because life is colorful, but I don't not only we're just black.
That's so true. No, mustard is a beautiful color. I love color. As you can see, I'm all flowers all the time. But color is everything, and I think it allows us to show up in happier ways, in so many ways as well. What has it taken to be you and wear these hats with such precision?
So blood, sweat, tears, sleepless nights, to be a person of color and a woman in the engineering industry. And I started studying engineering, many years ago. And I was one of very few women in my engineering class. When I went into industry, it was even worse. And actually, my first organization I started at 21 was called Womenage, SA Womenage, now it's just Womenage. And it was really, when we went into industry, we faced the worst that the industry had to offer. So I had to do vacation work, or engineering students have to do internships. And I was the only woman at the fabrication plant. And I was told that interns don't get paid, which I was very happy to do, because I was just like, I'm there for learning. And then on site, I'm a happy person, I smile at everybody, but somebody misunderstood my smiling and my good nature and felt like, being open for business, I guess. And I made advances which I wasn't comfortable with, and I kind of shut it down, and then got kind of attacked and bullied in the cyber world. And this was almost 20 years ago. But would kind of send me terrible emails about what the person was, and I never spoke to anybody about it. There was this shame attached to it. And I got back to university and found out that all the other interns at the same company got paid, and I was the only person who wasn't paid. And so I thought, as an engineer, I don't have to take this. I mean, I worked really hard. Engineering was a tough degree, and I could go and work for a bank or a management consultancy. This way engineers usually end up. And I said, but if we all, do that, nothing would change in the industry. And so this kind of set the scene for, what is kind of 20 years of work to be able to transform the engineering industry. And it was interesting because it was kind of a bottom-up approach. How do we create more women in the industry? How do we create it to be more accessible? I got into engineering. I usually say girls get into engineering one of three ways. One, your dad or an uncle was an engineer, never a mom, right? And so you became an engineer. The second one was, a teacher at school told you that you were good at maths and science, and that's what engineers did, so you became an engineer. And the third one was sheer dumb luck. Right? And so, or divine intervention, whichever one you're feeling. And I'm in that third category, right?
The sheer dumb luck one.
The sheer dumb luck one, yeah. And it was interesting for me because I didn't know what engineering was about. I didn't understand what it was, how wonderful this industry could be. Everything around us is engineered. And so the crucial role that engineers play in the world. And when we create a world that we literally are designing and there isn't people who look like me at the design table, it means that this world isn't physically even designed for us. And so I became a transport engineer because under civil engineering, which is a master's in transport, civil engineering is about people, right? And people are complicated, like really complicated. And so how do we create like the systems for people to make it easier to get in? And for me, transport was so important because if you think about access to every economic opportunity, access to anything, it requires transport. And so I became a transport engineer. I had a really incredible career, but also started building Women out to be this non-profit. And we didn't start it to be global, but the challenge around getting more women into engineering is a global challenge. And so then I had this kind of dual career of starting out as an engineer and doing kind of Women on the side as my kind of passion project. And I worked as an engineer on some like incredible projects because it was just before the 2010 World Cup in South Africa. So got to be a site engineer on stadium builds, on airport infrastructure. So there's a ramp as you come out of Cape Town Airport for the parking. That was like my ramp. An Atlas Stadium, and I guess this is the great thing about being a civil engineer is that you actually get to see the infrastructure that you've been designing. And then I got a chance to work for FIFA during the World Cup, so I ran VIP transport operations in Cape Town. And then for a development consultancy working on public transport, climate change. But Women was growing. The challenges that we were having here with our partners, we were trying to kind of create this more diverse and equitable engineering society. Because it was global, we started scaling, and I had to kind of make this decision on, do I stay in my engineering job and do this on the side, or actually do my co-founder Emma and I quit our jobs and follow this path. And I remember this so clearly because Emma was going to take a year sabbatical, and we're going to do this for a year, and then going to go back into industry. And what was that? 10, 11 years later,
you never went back.
And what we've done at WOMHub is, and somebody said, how do you build your companies? And I always say, like, entrepreneurs, we solve for pain. And so at the time, there weren't any engineers in industry. Female engineers kind of faced an uphill battle. So we solved for that pain point. And then when we became entrepreneurs, very similar challenges around kind of raising capital, around the lack of support for female entrepreneurs. And so we solved for that, and we created incubators and accelerators to support women entrepreneurs. And our latest challenge is, access to finance and capital for women is still an uphill battle. And so, again, trying to solve, when we actually wanted to start a bank, but then starting a bank is really tough. So we started a venture capital fund that invests in women entrepreneurs. We're one of the most active investors in female-led entrepreneurship on the continent. And we've worked in 30 countries around the world to be able to support women through either developing talent, developing entrepreneurs, developing these incredible co-working and innovation spaces, and then the last one is deploying capital.
Wow, Nadia, my mind is blown. Which female attributes do you really think, or characteristics, have really fed into your beliefs? And what I am hearing also from your story is existing for a reason. My purpose in the world is to. It would be lovely for you to articulate that for us. What is your purpose? What is your personal story around how you step into solving and understanding that, you know what, this is the problem that's there. I'm not going to ask somebody else to solve the problem. I'm going to be the solution and create a solution for myself and others. And I don't sense and hear any bitterness in the story. You know, the world did this to me. I didn't get paid. You know, you're not embodying victimhood. How has being you and the beliefs that you have and possibly the attributes shaped this way of being?
Yeah. So look, I guess my parents are pivotal in shaping some of that outlook, and I remember my dad really, he kind of told me that the first time there were two things that my dad kind of things that I remember so clearly. And my mom and dad are my biggest champions and supporters in very, very different ways. You know, my mom's the nurturing, caring, and my dad is just like, the two pieces of advice was, when I was really little, I came home from school crying one day because I said, you know, because my ears had grown faster than the rest of me, so I had like, you know, ears that were sticking out, and the kids at school were ruthless. And they called me Dumbo, like the elephant. And I came home crying, and I was just like, Daddy, all the boys made fun of my big ears, and my dad said to me, you tell them that at least you have your hair to cover your ears. They have nothing to cover their ugly face. Right?
Oh my God!
And when I look back, and it's not potentially the greatest parenting thing to say, but
of course,
what he taught me was to stand up for myself. Right? And so if somebody says something mean or terrible to you, you either can cry about it, or you can actually, stand up for yourself and say that's not okay. And well, his methodology would say something mean back, but the
lesson was
understood. Was to stand up for yourself. And the second part was, he said to me, life is unfair, deal with it, right? And I think that's the piece that in the work that I do, trying to move towards an equitable society that is fair, understanding that life isn't, right? And I always think about it like potential is unlimited, opportunity is not. And so how do we create opportunities when people who have incredible potential but will never have access to it, right? And so how do we almost democratize opportunity? And so, those are the two pieces. And from a female perspective, and I kind of laugh at this because I'm always surprised why women are not on top of the world, right? Because if I think about literally how much pain we go through on a daily basis, and I've got two kids, and and the amount of pain it took to bring those two kids into this world. But we suffered through it. I mean, and both my pregnancies were not great pregnancies. I kept in the first one I had sciatica for about 6 out of the 9 months. And then the second one, basically all my ligaments moved, so I walked like a duck for like 6 months.
Wow.
So terrible pain, and then they still, they cut you open and take this child out, and then you are expected to, from the time that child comes out, to care for that person, right? And so you're in pain, but you're not allowed to be, in pain because you've also got this to look after, right? And so if I think about how much pain a woman goes through on a daily basis, it's almost kind of inherently who we are, and so we're able to live through pain and suffering in a way that is completely, like, men will never understand it. And I think that's the piece that I bring to the world, and I, in my work, right, is that I'll just work through the pain. So when there's challenges and we laugh about it, but actually a lot of, I say to you, I solve for pain as an entrepreneur, right? So whatever pain I face, I build something to be able to solve for it. I just work through the pain.
It's so powerful, because when we look at the concept of pain, it's something that we're generally taught it's not going to be great, it's uncomfortable, you want to push it away as much as possible. But what I'm hearing in what you're saying is you're taking the pain, you're bringing it closer and saying, you know what, I'll work through it, I'll use the pain to solve. And I remember when I looked at my own personal challenges, how difficult it was sitting with pain on, or allowing it to walk next to me for a while. And I guess there's a particular way of being that allows you to sit with pain. What's that?
And look, the other thing is like for pain, and I think a lot of women, especially, we sit alone with our pain, right? Whereas I don't. I mean, I've got so firstly, my co-founder Hema, I said this quite openly to my husband that Hema's my soulmate, right? We're there for each other more than anything in the world, right? And so I've got a very small circle. I was laughing the other day because I was, if you had to have a table of the people that are closest to you, right? I'd have a very small table, and everybody goes, Nadia, you know so many people, you've got so many friends, and I was just like, yeah, but my inner circle is very closed, but those are the people that help you through the pain, right? And we've helped each other through different pains in our lives. Being there for each other completely when we're falling apart, which we always do. There is that person there to work with you through that pain point and come up better the other side. And I think that's what we lack sometimes as women, is that person who is going to sit with you through the pain and the trauma and not let it envelope you, but actually help you through it to get through the other side, and then leverage it as part of your strength, right? So the whole like, what doesn't kill you make you stronger. Just like the world keeps testing us, keeps trying to kill us, but and it's how we as women kind of get together and go, yeah, let me support you end to get you through to the other side.
I'm hearing vulnerability, the ability to actually open up and share. Love. So one of the 8 qualities that we talk about at Within People is love, and it's something that people don't believe belongs in the workplace. But what you're sharing there is a love for the other female, the love for friendship, the love for community. Your community has held you up and has allowed you to bring that pain closer. But for most of us women, our stories with other women haven't been the greatest. And you're talking about building a business with someone, and this one person is now your soulmate. How have you had a healthy friendship that's non-toxic, that has allowed you to build a business together?
Yeah. So I'm her biggest champion and she's mine. And I think that's the thing with women, is we always try to fight over scraps when we should actually go after the whole damn pie, right? And I think that's the difference, right? I will nominate her for stuff. If I'm not, whether I'm in the room or not, and we do this for each other, we are each other's biggest praise singers. I'm so proud of the woman that she is. And not just her, but also our CEO, Ange, who's, I'm surrounded by strong, incredible, powerful women who take nothing from me in being part of my team, right? In being part of the circle. And so when I am shouting from the treetops how incredible they are, it doesn't make me less incredible, right? And I think that's the difference here, is that I don't mind sharing. I can share the spotlight. Actually, I want to bring them into the spotlight. And it makes Hema sometimes very uncomfortable because she doesn't like the spotlight so much. And I'm just like, no, you gotta do this, you gotta do this. And so it's really powerful, because I can come and say, hey guys, I'm really amazing. But actually, if somebody else does it for you, it makes your job so much easier. It makes the doors open so much easier. And I think for me, that's the piece. And we're big Marvel and Avengers fans. But I'm a huge Iron Man fan. In my next life I want to come back as Iron Man, and Hema loves Captain America. But if you watch the kind of the Avengers movies, like Iron Man says "Love you 3000," right? And that's Hema and my thing, right? Is that we can openly express how much we love each other, right? And so how many times have you ever actually told your friends like, I love you? Right, we don't, and that's the piece that I'm like sharing. You'll tell that to I tell that to my husband, I tell that to my kids, I tell that to my mom, I tell that to my siblings, my sister, my brothers. But my friends, I really do love, right? And they're such a big part of our world. They're such a big part of our support system, and in business as well, right? Is to be able to say to your team like, I really love you. I love what you bring to to this company. I love the way in which it, I told our CEO, and I love the way she lights up when she is speaking with founders. She's an incredible facilitator. She supports the entrepreneurs, and I love the woman she is on stage with them, right? And just creating that environment. And so for me, it's really important to be able to express that to people, right? So yes, to say, hey, great job, but actually saying, I love the way you did this, means that you did a good job, but it's a different way of expressing the way, and making that person feel, on top of the world.
Wow. You have these really amazing gems, and as I'm listening to you, I'm reflecting, I'm thinking, how often have I really told my own friends that I loved them, like that deeply, except on birthdays. But what I'm hearing you say there is you really champion these women, you cheerlead for them, and you're saying there's enough room for us. Unfortunately, the misconception that we have to fight for something as women, like you're clearly saying, is what's really tearing us apart, instead of understanding that there's enough space for all of us. And let me keep pulling you and going with you. Let me not leave you behind. And let somebody else drum for you, and then you can dance to that drum. Wow, that's deep. That's deep, because it's not something that you hear in the workplace. That I love the way you did this. I love you. I love what you bring. I love how you show up. I love the light in your eyes when you're doing what you love. We're taught to say, well done, good work, that was great, but you don't really feel the emotional connect to what it is that you're bringing. How do you feel about the conception that women bring toxicity into the workplace?
And it's so interesting because, and I reflect about this a lot as a leader, right? Just because I'm a woman doesn't mean I'm not going to be hard on my team to get the job done, right? Because at the end of the day, we're running a company, and companies, we push purpose actually, but we also push profit, right? Because the more money I make, the better I can do, the more impact I can make in the world. And Hema will always say, we have a non-profit, we've got a for-profit, and we've got a venture capital fund, and never more have we made more impact as when we had a commercially viable business. And
tell me about that. And
so, when you're in the non-profit, you're always looking for funders, and donors will change, right? And they'll change their mind on things. We love donors, but you're now head of the foundation, and your vision is to support women in STEM, and so you'll fund women. But then, you go and you move on, and somebody else comes, and their passion actually is early childhood development. Equally important, right? That means that women just funding is going to get cut. Right? Whereas I'm a for-profit company, I make money, I can decide how I want to spend my profits, right? And I can spend it on women, I can spend it on, areas where foundations won't spend because it's too risky or whatever. And it's consistently and a sustainable revenue source. But, and we unapologetic on excellence. So anybody coming into our team, and this is sometimes the challenge when we're working in companies that have an impact, a sustainable impact like ours, right? We're supporting women. And so when I interview people, they go, Naadiya, I want to work with you because I just want to empower women. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Tell me exactly what you mean. Empowering women. What does that
look like? What does that
look in your head? And a lot of the times people see your profile online and they think that they're going to come here and we're going to hug each other and we're going to sing kumbaya, right? And I'm just like, no, we have got crazy targets, we've got metrics, we work damn hard every single day, right? And if you're not prepared to work very hard, if you're here to think that Naadiya's going to sit and hug you, then this is not the place for you, right? When you do excellent work, Naadiya is going to reward you, Naadiya is going to tell you that it was an excellent piece of work. Naadiya is going to say that she is thankful for you to come here, but we're corporate, just like everybody else. And I think that's the challenge, is that women going into the workforce, people just assume that she's supposed to be this nurturing, and you ask me what women embody in the workforce, and everybody always says it's nurturing. She brings nurturing, she brings team building, she brings everybody together, and yes, she does, right? But I said pain because I didn't, because nurturing is the stereotype, right? And so when you come into my, because Nadia is a mother, so Nadia is supposed to like nurture the team and be motherly. And we have people in our company who are very much like that, nurturing and motherly and supportive and bring cookies to everybody in the office. But Nadia's not, right? Nadia's not going to beg anybody. Nadia doesn't beg, right? So Nadia wants everybody to get the job done because the more money we make, everybody wins, right? Everybody's salaries get higher, there's bonuses, hopefully, So for me, it's about what does commercial returns and impact look like, right? Together. And then bringing that back into the team environment. But then if Nadia was a guy, everybody would be like, wow,
it's the real deal.
But Nadia's a woman, so she's a bitch because she actually made me work. She didn't, and it was so funny because I had an email the other day from somebody who had, these organizations who send you interns. And in the email she says, and it would be great for the intern who started with us to just, once a week, just sit with Nadia and him and just to understand the ecosystem. And I was just like, is this woman for real? Because she's asking the CEO for an intern to sit with the CEO of the company once a week just to find out what the ecosystem is doing. It's not going to happen. I don't even remember, I don't know the intern's name, not because I'm not wanting to nurture, but our company is growing, right? And so I would love to know the intern's name, but actually do I sit and nurture the intern, or do I grow the company, right? We've got $1 million revenue targets, right? So if I make lots of money, the intern has a stable job, right? And then she can do all sorts of things. She can get all sorts of things, out of life because she has the stability. But actually, if Nadia's sitting with the intern, there's actually very little benefit and value. She's going to listen to me. She's going to be inspired. Maybe she's going to be like, "Oh, this is too much. Nadia's a little crazy. Nadia's a little hectic." Or she may need nothing from the conversation, right? That serves neither of us, right? And I think that's the thing is, and so Nadia doesn't want to sit with the intern, so Nadia's mean, right? And that's the thing that women are facing in the workforce every single day, is this idea that we've got to be this kumbaya, soft, and I'm just like, no, we're not all made like that.
But what I'm also hearing in what you're saying is, I can be soft, I can be woman, I can be feminine, but in that too, I can be goal-oriented, I can be focused, I can be hardworking, I can want to meet targets. I can bring and fuse those two things beautifully. And what my nurturing looks like is not necessarily what the next woman's nurturing look like. So can I be allowed to be an individual in the way I want to nurture you? Somebody else can hug you and do the kumbaya with you, which is beautiful. But my way of nurturing is creating opportunities for you, making sure there's salary for you, and still you're showing up as a mother. Because if you look at the roles that our mothers play at home, really, is exactly what you're talking to. There are times to sit with your kids and read a book, but there are times when we have to make sure that food is put on the table, the house is cleaned, your uniforms are in place. It's the same concept with running a business. I have to put food on the table for you. I've got to make sure you have the furniture, which is your uniform. But in all that, I'm still nurturing. I'm still a mother. I'm still whole. I'm still loving. It's just not in the way that you would expect it to be. And I guess there's a lot with fighting that stereotype. And unfortunately, the most resistance from what I'm hearing comes from women themselves. Because I expect you to be, oh, Nadia, let's go and do huggy. But no, Carol.
And also, I'm not a big hugger, I'm not. I wish I was, but I'm not a. It's they have those. What's your love languages, right? And so mine is. Mine is usually gift giving, right? And so. I will organize food, and I'm an organizer, right? So I'm just like, we kind of laugh about this in my family, but like I'm the person who organizes everything, right? So we go on a trip. Nadia has planned the trip. There's a spreadsheet happening. Like I know, like the other day we were planning a massive like kind of family vacation. I've done the hotel bookings, the flight bookings. I've got a spreadsheet. I know everybody's coming and going, where their layovers, stopovers, everything is done, right? And everyone has different skills, right? And that's my language of love, is making sure that although did you eat? I'm not going to cook the meal because I'm terrible at it, but I'm actually going to organize it. I'm really good at Uber Eats.
Uber Eats to the rescue, ladies. It's okay to order Uber Eats.
It's okay. It really is. can bake a cake. But the other day my son came home and he said, Mommy, can we bake a cake? And I looked at him and I was just like, in your whole life, I have never baked a cake.
But you decided to ask me today.
I was just like, why would you want a cake? And I was like, what we're going to do is we're going to buy a cake. And I went, because we know that it's not going to flop. Because I'm going to spend, 40 minutes to an hour trying to bake this cake. That's a 50-50 chance that it's not going to come out right. Right? And then I'm going to be really disappointed. You're going to be disappointed, and then we're going to have trifle because that's the only thing you can do with a messed up cake. So, right? Then we're going to get the cake, and then what we can do is decorate it really cool, and we can do like fun things with the cake, right?
Okay. We fail at the working together and fail even in the building of the friendships because our assumption is we have to be lovey-dovey.
Yeah.
We can show up in love, we can do things in love, but it's understanding what the other female's love language is, even in the workplace. Is she the organizer? Is she, like you're saying, the gift giver? Is she the one who makes sure that everybody knows which car they're getting into when we go for the team event? So how do we help women step into their authenticity? Because what you're saying here is, Karen would like to be allowed to be myself. I want to be accepted as a nanhaga, and that doesn't make me any less female.
Yeah.
Even though I'm a nanhaga, I'm still very much as female as the one who always say, "Oh, come and tell me what happened."
Yeah.
I will solve. I'll show you where to go in case you need help. But when it comes to the hugging, just spare me a little
It's
bit.
just like and that's the thing is, we I guess what we realize is that we all come in different shapes, way, functions, and form. And we can't brush it off. And we have a lot of the time because, women in the workplace had to have a specific mold, right? But we don't. Because we're not saying men in the workplace have a specific, because we have different kinds of guys, right? And they're allowed to be universal, right? They can be everything, whereas we have been put in specific blocks, right? And now we're going, actually, for me, and I tell this a lot of the times when we speak about diversity and inclusion, you're going to get the best out of diversity and inclusion when people bring their full selves, right? Because that's what inclusion means. You can be completely diverse, but you couldn't be inclusive because actually you want everybody to conform to a specific narrative. And the best companies understand that people are going to come in and show up in different ways. So how do you create the environment for inclusion? And when women are able to show up in the ways in which they do best, right, that means that we've created the inclusive environment.
And it's interesting you say that because when you talk about inclusion and diversity matters, one of the biggest things that comes up is color and gender and sexuality. And we actually forget that in the process of creating actually diverse environments and inclusive environments, I also should be allowed to say the stereotype around what women looks like is not inclusive to a woman like myself. Just like the other woman is chocolate or brown or whatever. In the same context, that mold that you have created around black people are like, or colored women are like, or then women are not all soft and fluffy and look like teddy bears.
No, and it's so funny because I'm outwardly facing Muslim because of the hijab and that, but like it can be very uncomfortable for people because I'm outspoken. I sometimes swear a lot on stage. I tell people to write the damn check to women entrepreneurs. So I don't fit the stereotype, and a lot of this is media, right? Media has said that Muslim women are conservative, oppressed, all of this. And I remember I was at university, and I was in the bathroom and I was like fixing my hijab, and it was like, right after, one of the stories comes out that, Muslim women are so oppressed. And yes, there are Muslim women that are oppressed, right?
Yeah.
But I happen to be the Muslim woman that is not, right? I come from an environment where my parents pushed me to succeed, pushed me to be an engineer. I went to study overseas. I lived in Germany on my own for a year. So I have an unconventional path to kind of the general Muslim woman. But I still choose to wear I choose to, because it's a personal reflection and it's a personal area in which I keep my faith. And I was in the bathroom and I'm fixing my hijab, and this girl like walks over to me and she like whispers, she's like, are you a yes, can I liberate you? And I looked at her and I was
Wow.
like, honey, I am the most liberated woman you have ever met. In fact, I probably could liberate you. And I just happened to, and I didn't blame her. And I said to people, I said, rather ask me whatever question, even if you think it's a dumb question. And so, in my class, I had like a bunch of clowns, and in my engineering class, and they had this joke that said, Nadia was their job because she has green hair, and she's just so cool, but she doesn't want to show everybody. And somebody overheard and actually thought it was real, because they were just like, because this was the assumptions. And then kind of at the end of like our last year of studying, he kind of accidentally asked about this green hair, and I was like, green hair? What green hair? He was like, no, that's why you wear this. And I was like, no, that's not why I wear this. Right? And I'm just like, a lot of the time, it's just like, ask. Like, if you have a question, just ask. Ask me anything. I'm like an open book. You can talk to me about anything.
And I won't be offended.
Yeah, and I won't be offended. But I will be offended is that you make the assumption and then you try to impose your stereotypes and beliefs on me, because then I'll get offended. Right? But if it's coming out of a place of like inquiry and understanding, I will never get offended if you ask me.
I find it very beautiful that you've liberated yourself as well from misconceptions, assumptions. You will not stay in a box. Yeah. You've refused to stay in a box. Totally, this is what the story is saying. And the fact that I think what I heard in the woman's question is that we lack curiosity in the world. She didn't bring curiosity, and this is you saying, ask me, be curious, have a conversation with me. I will meet you at that point. And I wonder what a wonderful gift it would be to give ourselves curiosity and give others, because in that way we don't assume that somebody is like this because, but tell me about you, tell me about your hijab, tell me about your beliefs, tell me about whether your world is that way at all, if anything. And here you are saying, no, I was not raised like that at all. I had liberal parents, I was pushed. And one would just assume because you're wearing a hijab. And for me, my hijab is my color. Just because I'm a black woman, I'm not supposed to be like this. Just because I'm a chubby, a heavier woman, I'm supposed to be having eating disorders. Or there's so many that I think we're shrouded with as women, and it's up to us to actually stand up and say, in my green hair, or my floral dress, or my daughter refuses to be called black. She insists she's chocolate. Yes, a light brown chocolate. So in our light brown chocolate, what is it that you're assuming about what you're seeing? Ask me and let's have that conversation. If you had an opportunity to mentor someone really close to you for a year, what is it that you would want them to walk away with?
So, I'd want them to walk away with the best versions of themselves. I've had many mentees in my year, and I think one of the worst mentees was she literally wanted to mold herself in my image. That's not what I want. I said to her, why do you want to be me when you get to be you? And it became actually uncomfortable and toxic, and I actually had to just end the mentorship relationship, because she became so attached to kind of me and my brand. And I said to her, what we put out on social media is not real, right? If you think about it, right? Like we show our best versions of ourselves on social media. These days, I don't really use that many filters, but there's all these filters, right? So people don't actually look like they look on social media, right?
True.
And you see that Nadia, right? So actually, when you see Nadia in public, that's not Nadia. Nadia is actually, I really love to just be at home on my couch watching cartoons with my kids. That's what I love. And so, for me, that's quality time, right? And Abby and I kind of I sit in the other day, just sitting around the table with my kids. That's all I want. Yes, what did I want for my birthday? I said time. Time is something you can't get back, and once it's spent, it's gone. It will never come back, right? And so, when I mentor young people, and even older people, when I mentor anybody, it's that I'm thinking about what your strengths are and what do you want to get out of the relationship, right? And what goal are you working towards? And then, making it a smart goal, so it's it's measurable. You can articulate it, and we can track the impact at the end. And usually, when I do just a year, I kind of give it like a mini contract to the person I'm mentoring, so that they can firstly articulate what they're trying to get out of the relationship, and so that we can work towards something. Because otherwise, it's great. I can have these fantastic conversations with you once a month, but it's around. I mean, I've mentored somebody who was at a company, the kind of new technology company, the cutting edge of things. I spoke to her and counseled her and mentored her around thinking, what is the equity market? She was doing all this work, no equity, right? And she was one on the founding team. And I said, what's your equity stake in the business? Because all the other founders have, she's taken a pay cut. I said, well, that needs to be compensated. And so helping women think through also what the value add is. Right? And for me specifically, I come from a place where I had a weird relationship with money. So, I was doing it because I started in the non-profit space, I was doing it for the good of the world. Right? It's because it's the right thing to do. I don't need to be paid or pay me what I'm worth. And actually, when I got into industry, I realized I was underpaid, chronically underpaid, because I never asked as well, right? I never negotiated. And when I was in the development consultancy and management consultancy space, I actually worked my way up because I loved people. And so while I was in the technical team, I used to do the interviews and ended up actually at some point being an HR director for a management consultancy.
Okay.
And women, all the women and the men that we hired and we did interviews with, there was only one woman who negotiated her salary. Right? All the other women, we gave them the offer and they happily accepted. All the men negotiated. Right? And for me that was really interesting because I also never negotiated. They asked me what I would like to earn, and I said, pay me what you think I'm worth. Right? Turns out I was underpaid. Because it's not in their best interest to pay you more. Right? It's in the company's best interest to pay you less so that they can maximize the return. Right? And so it's almost a naivety around thinking, and around the commercials. And when I got older and when I had kids, and you realize how expensive kids are, you realize that your salary needs to be much more. And so then you can negotiate, and it's really, you can't negotiate for yourself, but you can negotiate for others. And I think that's really interesting from a woman's perspective, is that how do we negotiate better for ourselves? And I always said, my mission is to be able to negotiate better for ourselves, to learn to teach women negotiate better from the boardroom all the way to the bedroom, right? Because we just don't negotiate for ourselves anywhere, right? And so how do we move and change that way?
You really touched on something that's quite interesting, the negotiation as a skill. I had the conversation with my daughter as well, around, instead of fighting with your brother, can you not negotiate?
Yes.
And she's like, why should I negotiate? Why should I? I'm like, it's interesting. It's actually a very useful skill. It's the same thing. We walk into stores and we just buy. But the other day you come in, especially, I learned this in material shops. I don't know if you like shopping for fabric.
I used to.
I like shopping for fabric. And I've always found when you have the males shopping, they will negotiate. Can I get that? For me, I just walk in and I'd also just like, it's fine, it's 250, it's fine. And I sat down with myself and started, what is really fine? Am I saying I have no agency? And I think there's something about teaching women to negotiate even in their relationships, because sometimes they find themselves falling or doing things that they didn't want to do because of the power of negotiation. How do I negotiate this relationship? How do I negotiate with my own boss around the things that I would like? And when we sit down and we look at other people's contracts, we feel so done for because we didn't negotiate. But that's a skill that we're not taught, unfortunately, in high school. It's not taught in university. And we're just taught what we need to be taught, and it's acceptable not to be a negotiator. So maybe there is something for women to really explore and unpack with. Let's negotiate. What is it you're offering? This doesn't work for me. What if we meet halfway? Can you add a bit more? And asking for more, especially on the salary, that feels even really awkward. You don't want to feel like you're overcharging them for your services, right? But there is something about, can I ask more? Does the world create space for me to ask for more? Because you know what? I do deserve more.
Yeah.
I work enough to earn more.
Yeah. And the other thing is, it's the like a couple of things that self-worth, and we learn this the hard way. I'm sitting here, as a with all these pearls of wisdom, but it was really hard for me, right? Because I never asked for more. I chronically undersold, like got underpaid and over-delivered, right? And I think that's the other piece is like a couple of things that are moments. One is the negotiating thing, but this culturally we've told we've got to be modest, right? We can't talk too much about how incredible we are. So, and I've started to talk to women more about, and I ran a session called Own Your Awesome, right? And in fact, I actually put it on notebooks for my board giveaway as gifts to the women entrepreneurs in our program. Because there's this whole piece around like when you shy away from all the awesomeness that you bring, it means that you're really modest at the negotiating table, right? Whereas actually if you come with the full power of who you are and the value add that you have in the room, you're able to really own that space, right? And that gives you the confidence to negotiate better because you know what you bring, right? And the worst they can say is no, or not at this time, or let's compromise. And I think that's the piece that we need to kind of help women think through is, right, how do we get everybody to own their awesome, right?
You once more touched on another attribute, color me brave. Being brave enough and courageous enough to step forward and say, I deserve more, I'm worth more, I'm awesome enough actually.
Yes.
There's something scary actually when I verbalize the words as well. It's like, what evidence do you have that you're awesome? What evidence do you have? And we come from a world where you have to prove, and anything that doesn't speak to that is not humble enough. You're not showing humility and you're not being modest enough. But why can't I own my space and be humble as well? Why can't I be modest and worth more? Can those two not sit together?
And then I think that's the brave thing is, the bravery piece is in being able to kind of step out of the molds that other people put you in. And a lot of the times when the work that I do, and when I'm on stage speaking about it becomes that, being able to also verbalize things that may not necessarily be a popular thing to say, right? And I remember I was in Aspen, Colorado at the Aspen Institute has this big event, the New Ideas Festival. And they asked me to speak with an incredible women panel around some of the challenges around women. And we had the woman who started the Me Too movement in the US,
yes,
who's kind of been a real activist for gender and inclusion in the STEM industries. And we had a journalist who had written about Ruth Ginsburg, the judge in the US, was at the forefront. It was a very American panel. And I got onto the panel and I said, the problem in the US is that you give white men a pass, right? And so it's a problem about privilege, right? Because it's a privilege for a young man who, and at the time it was kind of Brock Hudson in the US, and kind of raped a woman, and his picture was not a mugshot, but of him in his like blazer, and and they didn't want to ruin his future because he was on a track to become a swimmer, right, at some Ivy League university, which probably his parents paid for. Right, so he had the privilege of screwing up and literally breaking the law and violating a woman who will carry that for the rest of her life. Women don't have that privilege, right? We don't even have the luxury of failure, right? Because in the tech industry, everybody goes, oh, fail fast, fail quickly, right? But actually, if you think about the women who fail, they're never going to get trusted again, right? And especially if you're a woman of color. And so I got out on stage and I literally called out white boy privilege, right?
Yep.
And so afterwards everybody came up to me and they were like, oh my goodness, that was so incredible. It was the bravest thing anybody has said on the stage. And I was like, really, are we serious right now? This is obvious. It's obvious. The black man, Woody in the US is one of the most hunted creatures. Right?
He's an animal, he's not a person.
Exactly, right? And so how do you call this out? And I guess, when you own your own company, they say, you don't have as many career limiting moves Right, so when you call things out, like you may actually get uninvited from events, which it's one of
okay.
this. It's okay, but it means that you're able to share a truth or a lens in the world, right? And I've called this out on many things that I'm passionate about, right? Whether it was kind of social justice, whether it was climate justice, whether it was whatever it was. Being able to kind of call it out, but it does mean that it is a brave thing to do, but it also, I always think about kind of getting back to Spider-Man and Aunt May said, with great power comes great responsibility.
True.
Right? And I have a privilege being in these rooms, whether it's the World Economic Forum or wherever. It's for me not just to take a seat at the table and quietly watch the negotiations happen, but actually be actively part. Right? And so there's no use in me getting a seat at the table if
I'm not going to say anything.
Exactly. And not value and being able to disrupt the way in which the world operates.
If you had to give advice to a set of friends around working together and building together, what would you tell them?
So I would say take the feedback as it is meant and not too hard, and be really open and honest with each other, right? And I think for women that's really hard not to take it personally, right? Because we take everything so personally, and then we overthink it, right? And then we spend sleepless nights. And Hema and I think we now at the stage in our relationship where we can give each other brutally honest feedback, and we know that it is meant out of a place of love and growth rather than kind of breaking somebody down. And so if you, like with us as we grow our company, it's about like I've told Ange, just put me on my place. Now, Ange, if I step out of line, you put me on my place. Right? You have the right and the power and the authority to do that. In fact, we now all work for you because you're the CEO. I don't care that I'm a co-founder. You tell me, like, Naadiya,
this is not right.
Out of line.
Yeah.
And I think with being able to give people that power and also to come and say, I'm not happy because you let me down and I remember, one of the hardest, I'm not a crier. So again,
no hugger, no crier.
So if I cry, you must know that it was like it's really the emotional toll. It's real, and
heavy.
And I guess the reason why I'm not a crier because I'm surrounded by a lot of friends and family that are very close to me that are all criers, and so somebody's got to be the pillar strength, handing out the tissues.
We can't all be crying.
We can't all be crying. And I remember I was going through a kind of a space in my life where just things were hard, and I was just not meeting my KPIs. I was not delivering things on time, and Hema had this conversation with me about how she was really disappointed, right? And so we had this kind of heart-to-heart, and she was really disappointed, and she was crying, and we were both hungry because we were running an event, and I left the pizza in her room. Right, and so she was crying, and I think we needed to get space, and she had to get it out about why she was so deeply disappointed with me and my actions, that she was completely ready to fall down. And we had this outright, and then I left her because she needed a space. And I really contemplated going back for a slice of pizza because I was really hungry. But then kind of thought a bit of it. But
you're so authentic.
But it's so and the next morning came in and we kind of spoke about it, and we and neither of us held any feelings, and today we actually laugh about it, and I told her after that I was just like I was really hungry and everything else was closed, and I really contemplated just knocking and asking for a slice of pizza, but I held back because I was just like this isn't the moment to do that. So, but we can do that now, and we've had many times where we've actually sat. I remember going to a meeting where we sat outside the US, we're going to a US embassy event, where we sat outside having a heart-to-heart, and we both ended up crying in the car because it was
intense.
It was intense, right? And I think when we're giving each other feedback and we're working together towards a common goal, to be able to be really honest, and harbor nothing from those conversations. And I think that's we always try and kind of walk around eggshells because we don't want to hurt each other's feelings, we don't want to ruin the friendship, We don't want to do all these, because we hold these people so dear to us, right? But actually, that doesn't serve anybody, right? And it means that we're all holding stuff in and we're bottling it up. And so when it does eventually come out, it's explosive and it's toxic and everybody gets hurt. Whereas dealing with it in the now means that you're able to troubleshoot it.
I can't add anything else. This is all we have from Naadiya. Thank you so much, Naadiya, for joining us today. Yeah. Feedback, love, authenticity, bravery. Those are the 4 words that I